So I'm starting our digital meetup today with Bo Lincoln from A Better Route Planner. And yeah, it's thanks a lot that you really have time to give us a presentation, because I think yeah, everyone probably, that's my opinion, everyone uses A Better Route Planner to really prepare the trips, or yeah, maybe right now in the pandemic to see where he could drive or not, or what would be a good route, or maybe do optimizing some routes or whatever. And yeah, so like to hand over the stage to you. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure to be here. I think now when we are not that many, I mean, it's not like hundreds of people. So I think while we do this, I will not follow a script from A to Z or anything like that. So feel free to break in with questions and so on. I know, Michael, you proposed that we had a more orderly way of doing this, but I'm sure there are things that I will touch upon where you have questions or want a clarification or a demo or something like that. And just ping me somehow, raise your voice or something, and we can discuss more.
You can raise the hand, should be possible, like I do now. There is a...
See if I can see that too.
There is a, yeah.
Yeah, I see a little raised hand there. Yeah,
should see.
That's a good point. So I'm not that familiar with Teams, and I don't know really if I can see all the hands if you raise them, but at least I see yours there, so that's a good.
I will help you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. All right. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming, everyone. My name is Bo. My hobby project turned into something bigger here, A Better Route Planner. But it all started when I got a Tesla about 4.5 years ago. I bought a Tesla in Münster, Germany. I'm from, I live in Sweden otherwise, so I bought it in Germany, and I went to Germany. I flew there with a bag of money, almost, and then I got myself a Tesla and drove home. It's not that far; it's 700 kilometers, so it's not a long road trip. While driving, except for being extremely happy, but it's the first time I was ever driving a Tesla. That was my after I bought it. I realized that I couldn't really figure out how to charge and how to plan my trips. I was going to go to Denmark to pick something up the day after or the weekend after and go back the same day. And I just couldn't figure out with the tools at hand and with Tesla's Navigator how to do that in the proper way. So just for my own sake, I started implementing a small route planner in Python, and the user interface was pure text. And it told me how long to charge at every supercharger, and that was basically it. It had support for one single car, and that was mine. It had support for the superchargers around me, so that was basically the start of A Better Route Planner. I am background from my side. I'm not a programmer per se, but I've been using software development as a tool for my entire career. So I've been programming for need when I had a need to, and my job at that time was actually to work with signal processing for a radar company. So it's kind of different than route planning, but still some common elements in there. So what I did was I ran this tool on my NAS, so my server in the closet. And I bought a betterrouteplanner.com, the name, and published it a couple of weeks later, just because I realized that there could be others who could use that with a very simple web interface. So the Swedish Tesla Club were the first users of this tool. And so yeah, basically I was working on it for 2 years as a hobby project on weekends and so on. Got more and more interest, especially when a couple of YouTubers showed up and interviewed me and published some things, and then all of a sudden there were a lot more users as well. And after a while, I got contacted by user number 61, I think, in A Better Route Planner. We have a numbering of the registered users, the ID of the user. And this guy, Torbjörn, turned out to be the number 61. He had driven his Model S60, I think, 1,200 kilometers to a skiing resort somewhere in the middle of the winter, and he was completely dependent on a better route planner to even make that trip at all. So he was very happy and very enthusiastic about the whole thing, and after a lot of talking, he convinced me to actually go to start a company around it and start working full-time on it instead of just doing it as a hobby project. So since 2 years back, we have a company called Iterno, which is just the name behind a better route planner, where the idea is basically to continue and extend and improve a better route planner as the free service it is today, but also at the same time try to sell the functionality. So basically the route planning behind it as an API that other businesses could use in their products and so on. And I can talk a little bit more about that later as well. You also notice that we are not completely free anymore as a consumer service. There's premium functions that I can also talk a little bit more about later, where you as a user can become a premium member and then get more features that weren't originally included in the free version. But you can do a lot in a better route planner without being without even logging in actually. And that's the intention. I mean, the whole idea behind a better route planner, except for solving my routing problems for myself, is really to enable EV driving, to make it seem less scary, to let people learn and understand what it's like to drive an EV. Because there, as you know, you're probably all EV drivers, being part of the Tesla club. You've seen this, all the quirks and all these things that you have to learn and understand to charge right and to drive right and to what affects your driving and your range and all of that. And just talking, and you also know that just talking about the range of a certain car is pretty uninteresting, because range is just it's a number that varies greatly with a lot of aspects. So let's see. Now there was some kind of forum thing popping up here. Is that part of the
yeah, sorry, I was just I didn't want to do that. Yeah. So yeah, I put in a question, so maybe if you guys have time, then
yeah, it's fine. I will just click them away so they're not visible on my screen here. Anyhow, where was I? Yeah, so a better route planner is a lot about learning. It's a lot about dreaming, but it's also about actually planning your actual trips and actually driving your trips, and with sometimes a better route planner as a companion as well, to kind of get you there without feeling any confusion or any uncertainty about whether to get there or how to get there or anything like that. So that was actually the plan from the beginning, to be able to run this in the Tesla browser from the beginning, both as a planning tool and then maybe not in the Tesla browser. I mean, part of the point is really to do what Tesla doesn't do, and that is to be able to show plans and plan at the kitchen table or at the coffee machine before you make the trip, and not just in the car. And then also be able to take that plan and execute it in the plan, execute it in the car. That is, as you drive, that we follow up what's happening, show you where you are compared to the plan, and with time here, the latest updates, we are able to just refresh and give new recommendations as you drive and all of that. And of course, with more and more people coming into the EV world, being, let's say, more normal people and not the initial EV enthusiasts, it's more and more necessary that these things are streamlined and understandable, and maybe even that you don't have to understand all the aspects of an EV. You should just get the help from the car or the tool to get you where you want to go. I have my nearest neighbor here on the street. He just got his first EV 2 weeks ago. He got an ID4 delivered finally, Volkswagen, and the first thing he does is to go skiing with this one as well, 1,200 kilometers away. But he actually does it in the way that he takes the flight there himself, and then he sends his wife with the new EV to drive there, which was kind of an adventure. So I had to go there and have some training sessions with them on how to charge and how to go to Ionity, and even harder, of course, how to pay at Ionity and get this whole thing going. But in the end, they actually got there and they got home. On the way home, they did not charge at Ionity anymore because they were so tired of that system. So they went by 50 kilowatt chargers all the way. But anyway, they made it. They used the tool. They're still kind of happy with their EV. But obviously there's still a lot of things that you need to, or that we need to improve for, everyone to be able to be an EV driver, basically. There's still a lot of things to improve in general with EVs. And that's also something that I usually state when we talk about, what's the future of a better route planner, and what's the future of that, and what's the next step, and what's in the to-do list, so to say. That's the easiest thing in the world still when it comes to EV. There are so many obvious problems to solve to make it easier for an EV driver to understand what he or she is doing, and which car to buy, and how to get there, and whatever it is. So we're by no means done in any sense. Teslas, are super great cars, and as you know, Tesla has also built this fantastic supercharger network, which is really maybe even more important than the car sometimes, that they really went all in and take full responsibility of the whole ownership experience, which they do pretty well in most aspects, at least, as you know. And that's not something that all the car manufacturers do. We have all the others basically are used to doing this as they used to do it. That is, they build a car and then they deliver it, and then that's it. Someone else will have to take care about the rest. And that someone else doesn't really exist except for the user. So we have to really help the users there to make sure they like this, so that we can go more electric in the world. And yeah, that's what we're doing. Well, Michael told me here that most of you probably have been using a better route planner. I hope so. I hope you have some use for it. Obviously, Tesla has a pretty nice navigation system, but it doesn't really have all the features that we have. And we're trying, a lot of our users are still Tesla users. So it's not that we only work with non-Tesla users. I don't know the percentage, but it's certainly a lot of Tesla users still. We work really in basically all of the world, all parts of the world where there are EVs, except China right now. And we don't work in China because we don't really know China, and we don't know exactly how to get IT systems to work from China and so on. Otherwise, the maps and the charger stations and all of that, it's not that hard to get everything to work. So the biggest countries that we have in a better route planner is the US. And then Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, France, in some order there. I think the US and Germany are pretty much the same number of users, I think. Switzerland obviously as well. So it's certainly users from a large part of the world, which is super fun when you work with it, because you get you get the feedback and complaints and hoorays and so on from different parts of the world, and you get to know the local problems that exist in different parts of the world. Obviously, the things can be quite different depending on where you are. In Europe, we have a fantastic amount of chargers if you compare to the US, for example. In the US, if you don't drive a Tesla, there is basically Electrify America and then maybe some other network that is trying, but otherwise you don't have anything long distance covering really. In Europe and Germany and Switzerland and so on, you have a lot of different networks where you can actually drive by non-Tesla chargers without having any issues, except maybe for paying them. But that's something we also have to work on. So my intention now, unless you steer me in a different direction, is that I will go through. I will bring up the website and just show you a few basic functions here, and we can start discussing around that. I will try to point out if I'm using a premium feature, so that you don't feel too confused if you're not a premium member. Yeah, let's start there and see where we end up. Now I will have to hide my video view of you, and I won't be able to see the raised hands, I think. So Mike, help me.
I will help you, but you should still see it.
Yeah, all right, I'll try. Yeah. Anyhow, let me try to share a browser tab here. I think this one should work.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see a map of something here. This is actually the neighborhood. That's where I am in Lund, which is in southern part of Sweden. So if I zoom out a little bit more here, we can see the whole map, basically down all the way down to Switzerland. You see I have a few other red car markers here on my map. This is of course one of the features of a better route planner with live data that you can have, obviously connect your car. I think many of you have done that also in a better route planner. And if you're a premium user, you can also have multiple cars or share cars with your friends. So these cars here are a few different cars which I'm sharing with some other people in the company, and I think this is my wife out bicycling right now. So it's of course a kind of a spying tool as well, but we're trying to keep privacy on a very good level here. So I'm just showing it to you here now, very zoomed out. Anyhow, the better route planner on the web, this is how it started. This is obviously the second version of it. You might have seen the classic version as well, which was the one built for Tesla initially. This app is one of the apps we do, but we also have obviously the iOS app and the Android app, and nowadays also the Polestar app, and we have flavors of the app that does CarPlay, and we have Android Auto as well. So there's a bunch of different user interfaces for the same functionality, basically. And the way we develop this is actually in a multi-platform way. So we actually write the same code for all of these things. It's the same common code for at least 90% of these. 90% of the code is common, I would say, between these apps, which is fantastic for us. We are still a small startup company. We're about maybe 4 or 5 people working full time, if you count full-time equivalents at least. So it's an extremely small development team and we can still work on 6 different platforms at the same time, which is of course only possible if we share a lot of code and a lot of structure between these apps. Anyhow, this is what you see when you get to a better route planner first time. Since you've all seen that before, you know what the simplest function is. And I will just now plan a standard trip with my car. Let's see if I can move you a little bit, Michael, too. Here we go. You might not have seen this if you haven't had multiple cars, or you don't have multiple cars in your account, but there's a button down here where you can select cars. So if you have multiple cars, you can actually select which vehicle that you have. And the vehicle in a better route planner is like it's a model that is, or it's a car that is tied to your account. So you have to have an account to have a vehicle saved. And you can then also connect live data to it by, for example, logging in with your Tesla credentials or using some other method that fits that type of car. So this is, in its simplest form, a car here that I will point at is just a set of settings for a car. It's it's a certain type of car. It has certain parameters set and so on. And I have one selected right now, and that's the one I will typically plan for. You see, there's actually under my car here, it was called Time Warp, which is connected to Tesla. You can see the battery status of it. There's a bunch of like sub configurations here, and this is a feature of a better route planner, which is also a premium feature, with the idea of the same car in different conditions. So in my case here, this is in Swedish, but it's like the standard car. It's the winter tire car. It's the car with the bike rack on it, which is my wife is bicycling right now, so she's brought the bike rack with her. And then I have, like, for my 21-inch rims as well, a certain configuration. And you can think about this as like one complete new set of settings for this same car, but only one of them can be active at a time. So that's the active one. That's where your live data goes right now. And this is also something where we and I can talk more about that later. We also estimate how this vehicle behaves and consumes power, depending on the configuration. So obviously, if you run a car with your bike rack on, with your ski box on, compared to your standard car, that will be quite a big difference in consumption. So let's see if I can move you again, Michael. Here we go. That's something we estimate differently. You can see that in this page here on the car, for example, that we have this calibrated reference consumption, and behind that there's also actually a full calibration model for this car that is adapted to your particular car. You can see that this number 193 is obviously a lot lower on the standard configuration than on the, for example, the bike rack configuration. Now it takes a little time before it updates here, where it is 242. So it's a lot worse when I have the bikes on my car than without it. And I think you as EV drivers might have noticed this if you've tried to do something that really ruins the drag coefficient of your car, which is what happens with my bikes. Anyhow, I've just selected a car. Let's choose this one with the bike rack. And then I'll just go back, and then I'll just do the plan. And my standard plan is to go to my brother in Sollentuna, just out of Stockholm. So doing that plan, and let's see if I have the right settings here. I did have the right settings. You have seen the result of this one. Now, since I'm planning with this terrible drag coefficient Model S with bikes on it, you see that there's going to be quite a few chargers on this 650 kilometer drive. You'd never charge this frequent if you just drive the normal Model S. This is a Model S 90, so it's about 80 kilowatt hour battery or something like that. If you have a nicer long range Model S today, you would not charge this much, and especially not with the bikes. So the idea of this initial plan is just to show basically any user, either a power user like you or anyone who wants to know about EVs, how long time does it take to drive to a certain place that as what it's like to drive there in a gasoline car. So we really try to optimize the total trip time, and it's not because the total trip time is always the most important thing. It's just a very important thing for many when they think about EVs. If they're beginners or whatever, if they think about EVs, a lot of people still think that charging is something that takes forever, that will ruin your long trip and make it a lot slower and so on. And obviously that's true if you drive an EV that's not suitable for long trips. Like we sometimes have an internal list of the worst vehicles in a Better Route Planner when it comes to long trips. And of course, for some of them, you would have to charge like every half hour or 1 hour, and then charge for 2 hours or something like that. And that's the kind of faulty model that many people have in their minds when they think about EVs. You drive for a short while and then you charge for a long while, where of course, as you know, the reality is different. You drive for maybe 2 hours and then you charge for maybe 20 minutes. That's the typical configuration. And maybe I should switch to standard Model S instead of doing this terrible bike rack version, to make that plan a little different. Let's see if we plan then from plan. If we would have zoomed in here, by the way, you would have noticed that the plan started where the car is now, which is obviously one feature of having it connected as well. I'm not where the car is, but the plan starts there unless I tell it to do differently. So again, now we have still quite a few chargers. I wonder if this one was actually suited. Anyhow, let's skip that now. At least it's a lot less charging time here. So the reason why we do this time optimization when we plan is really originally that we wanted to be able to show people and ourselves that driving an EV does not make your trips a lot longer like this. And you probably know, just like I feel that once you've gotten used to these charge stops, I'm just waiting for the next charge stop when I'm driving, because it's you get used to not driving for more than 2 hours before you get the leg stretcher, which is super nice. You can go to the bathroom and you can see something new instead of just a highway. Whereas when I had a diesel car, I would be driving for 6 hours in a row without having wanting to stop, because I just wanted to get there as soon as possible. But now you're forced to stop to charge, and then it just feels so good, and you're so much more relaxed when you get there. So this is something I try to tell all my friends when I talk about EVs, that driving like this and stopping every 2 hours is actually super nice. But they still don't believe me, so I guess they have to try it themselves before they understand it. Another thing with EVs is obviously that charging is something that is not just filling up to 100% and then you go again. It's something where the speed varies a lot with your state of charge, that is the percentage of your battery. You know this already, but it's another factor that complicates life for EV beginners, let's say. So this fact that you should probably come to the next charger with maybe 10% state of charge, that's something that makes this really complicated when people try to think about it in their head, how to plan the next drive, how to plan the next, this charge to be able to reach the next charger and whatever it is. So that's also something, of course, that a Better Route Planner is there for, to be able to tell the user that this is the best amount to charge. And now it's really tiny on the screen here, but you can see, of course, that when you arrive at a certain charger, you get a recommendation for how long you should charge here. Now I see why we got so many chargers here. Someone set my settings to 20% instead of 10% arrival. And now when we're there anyway, let's just show you the settings. Obviously, you have seen the settings icon here. We have a simple mode that we start per default in, and when we open a better route planner to not confuse people too much. But I think most users will switch to detail within a few seconds after seeing that switch. So what I was going to change now is my margin. So I go in here, I go to battery and chargers. I will change from 20% margin, which is something that comes from some of my test vehicles. And it also only charges to 70% for some test reason. I'll just change that, oops, not to 1000%, but 100%. And I think now we're better off in the driving here. Let's see that I have the speeds correct as well. Yeah. Then I'll just press plan again, and then we get a trip with not so many charge stops here. Let's see, not so long charge stops maybe. Let's see what we get. Yeah, we got rid of one charge stop at least here and got a better idea of a 30-minute charge stop here in the beginning. A few premium features here as well, just while I was talking about it. You might have seen that in settings, there is this automatic settings switch. This is my favorite feature or favorite setting in the whole settings menu, because in the end, again, less power users are coming in. I, as a user, would really like the whole thing to be completely automatic and just tell me where to go, where to charge and not ask any more questions. And we're trying to go there. Obviously, we're not there because we would also like people to be able to tune the settings if they want to. But I most often just set this automatic settings to on whenever I can and when I'm going to drive, and that means it turns on as many automatic features as possible for this one. Here, for example, it turns on obviously that because my car is connected, it uses my live state of charge on the battery because it's blue. It uses my live reference consumption or even the full estimated consumption model of this car, since I've been training it by driving. It can also do things like show, let's see here, I don't know if this is connected to that one, maybe not, but it uses battery degradation as estimated from the vehicle as well, meaning that the battery becomes a little worse with time and driving. And in my case, my 2016 Tesla Model S at about 110,000 kilometers, it has a battery degradation estimated to about 6%, which seems reasonable, and I think it's quite okay with that age of an electric car. Great. Charger availability is a premium feature that I'm just pointing out here as well. All of this telemetry stuff or all this live data stuff is actually no premium feature. It's free for anyone to use. We would like people to connect their cars. We get data and the users get a lot easier usage of the app. So it's a win-win situation. I'll talk more about data later. This is one thing that is a premium feature, charger availability, and this is basically a forecast for how busy the chargers will be. And as you know, we have special times right now since a year back, and this means that charger availability is usually not an issue anymore. The superchargers are not full, and no one really cares too much about this feature right now. But I promise there will be a day when this is an issue again. So let me show you what happens when I have this one on. What you get out is let's see now, I have to replan again. What you get out is this little green text here with a little, I don't know, forecast icon here. It basically shows you what we think about the availability of chargers when you get there. So not now, but when you get there. So it says not busy, not busy, not busy. Again, Corona makes it not super interesting right now, but it will be again. So this one uses a forecast system to actually look at the time when you arrive to see what time of day, what day is it, and so on. Do we think it will be busy or not? Next to this one is the live view of this charger. So you can see here there's a bunch of green blocks and one single red block on this one here, a little bit more red blocks here. This is the real-time view. This is also a premium feature that shows you how many chargers are in use right now. Of course, if I'm going to be driving to Stockholm and I'll arrive here in the middle of the night, I don't really care if it's used now or not. But it still kind of gives an indication on the fact that there is such data and that it's not completely broken or anything like that. So you can still give some information. Another thing that you might see here is that there is a small weather set of weather symbols over here. That is, of course, our weather forecast, which is also something I turn on when I turn on this blue automatic settings feature. If you're a premium member, again, weather forecast is for premium members. You can type in your own weather parameters if you're not a premium. And you see here that the forecast is that, you know, if we go mostly north here, we get mostly headwind in this case, and around from 7 to 3 degrees Celsius. So not a super warm trip. These things is something we take into account when we plan as well. So as part of the planning, as part of doing the shortest possible trip in terms of time, we of course have to predict how your car will behave as you drive, because otherwise our plan would be useless. So this prediction has to be a good prediction, or the plan that isn't really a plan for you. And to make it as correct as possible, obviously weather does matter. I think most of you might have noticed that, you know, cold weather does affect your car because we have to spend some battery power on heating the car. Weather such as wind obviously does affect your consumption, because a headwind will of course make it seem like you're driving faster basically with your car. Also a fact that you may or may not know is that the drag coefficient, basically the resistance of going through the air, increases a lot with speed. And if you go at highway speeds, then that's a large part of your power consumption is really just the the wind resistance, the drag. So if you also go through a headwind at the same time, you have that's going to be affecting you a lot. And that's also, by the way, of course, something that is very different from an ICE car or gasoline car, because in a gasoline car, which is so inefficient all the time anyway, you won't notice this probably because the consumption is you're burning a lot of fuel for no reason anyway. So the wind is something that is always there for all vehicles, but it matters a lot more for an EV. Headwind here, we actually have now a pretty advanced wind model that will calculate how like a pure crosswind, for example, also affects your consumption and so on. So that's also something that's not visible purely by looking at this list here, is actually that there's more detail along the road that we take into account. If I click the route there, I will get a small chart here showing you basically the state of charge burn down, how we consume power along between the chargers here, between this one and the one behind. But it also shows you the gray elevation map that we use in the background to calculate the consumption. So again, there's a lot of details going into estimating your consumption and doing the best guess we can for consuming, for how you consume. And that also goes for charging, that while you charge, or we make a prediction for how your charging will go. And all of that is included in this optimization from the plan. So we know that you will be charging slower at higher state of charge, of course. We know that you'll be consuming more when the wind is in a certain direction, a certain speed on a certain highway, and so on. So there's a lot of things happening in the background when we create this plan. That's also something that we have noticed working with this, that this problem is a lot harder to solve than the, let's say, non-EV version of routing. So if you go to Google Maps and just type in a destination, you'll get a fine plan and a fine time estimate for when you will arrive at Stockholm or whatever in your gasoline car, because charging is not an issue, it doesn't take any time to fill up the tank and so on. And just calculating the fastest route on a map, that's a super simple problem that's been solved so many times and in zero time basically. Whereas calculating the best set of chargers and charging durations and speeds and all of that to drive an EV to the destination in the shortest possible time, that turns out to be technically extremely hard problem to solve, which is of course both good and bad. For us, it's kind of good because we've spent so many years now on on working with this and rewriting that code and learning how this can be done, that we have a pretty nice and good solution in our mind. It's kind of fast enough. It contains all the important parameters and all the important predictions and so on. And most other apps that are trying to do this have a very hard time to get this quality and performance, basically. So that's something, of course, we as a small startup company think is nice, because if competition has a hard time, then it's good for us. Again, that's not the main point of the whole thing. The main point is that we're there to try to get more people to understand EVs, and that's the important part. All right. Anyhow, simple plan. I think you've done also all the most of you have tried also the more advanced features. This one, let me just show you. I think you might have discovered this feature. This is the let's say the little bit more old school way of showing you the plan, the Excel version more or less, where you can see this, the whole plan, same thing, same information is here in a table. So like we did in the classic version as well. You can turn on and off that table by pressing this button. You can actually, with or without that being shared, you can even share this to Excel. If you press this share menu, there's a bunch of different things you can do to share this. And you might not have noticed, but there is a bunch of different clever things we can share here. We can share, for example, this plan to Tesla. You might have seen that. That unfortunately means only that we share basically the first charging stop to Tesla, and because the Tesla won't accept more than 1 point, as you know. You can share a better route planner link, so like a URL that you can send to your friends to get the same plan. You can obviously share to maps and so on, share to Excel, and there's even share to calendar. So if you have a plan where you set certain times and dates and so on, if you press this one, you will get a calendar file that can be imported directly to your calendar. And in that calendar entry, there is a link to a better route planner and that plan. So you can just press that calendar entry and you get your plan in your phone or in your browser for immediate usage. So that's pretty neat. All right, more advanced usage here. We talked about that. Well, let's look at this plan here. We charge for 30 minutes here, and then we get here, charge for 13 minutes, and then 23 minutes over here. This is a place where I could imagine stopping for some food. It's a decent restaurant at this Supercharger. Supercharger restaurants seldomly get past decent, but this one is decent in some, according to some scale. Anyhow, and I will not eat in 13 minutes. So I need to do something here to get this plan correctly. So what I will do is I'll click this one, and I will actually just enter some longer charging time here. So let's say I'll start for an hour. If that would have been me driving and eating, it would not have been an hour. If it would have been me with the family, it would be more than an hour. But let's say 1 hour now, at least. And then you can just replan with that additional information. And of course, that is going to change the plan, because now I will be staying here for 60 minutes. That was an interesting stop. Seems like we got a stop here, which is basically no charging. So I don't know why we got that one. But anyhow, you fill up the battery more or less full here, up to 97%. And you can basically get all the way to Stockholm without charging. This is a bug. So of course that's a very common use case, that you want to change your charging a little bit. Again, if I remove this one, just press the reset button here, so I remove all the parameters. I hope. Let's see. Yeah, then we're back to the original plan, and we can start over again if we want to. Another obvious feature of a better route planner, obvious because you have used it before, not obvious otherwise, is that you can add waypoints. Now I had this waypoint of that Supercharger still, but I will add another waypoint instead, which is not a Supercharger, and just see how that affects things. So I'll actually go to my mother-in-law, which is like almost on the way to Stockholm, and let's see where we end up here. Here we go. So we'll take a small detour on this side of the lake, Vättern here, and then go back and then go around to Stockholm again. And of course, that does affect my plan a little bit, because I'm going to a waypoint here where I'm not going to charge. I'll come to this city, Habo here, and with 40% state of charge, and that's just enough for me to get to the next supercharger here to continue the trip. So that's the point with waypoints. And you might have seen on Twitter and other places that a lot of people are nagging to Elon to introduce waypoints in the Tesla navigation system. I hope that he will at some time, because that's definitely needed. But until then, of course, we have a better route planner as well that can help us out here. You see what it did actually on the plan. It actually added this charge stop for half an hour here, which is basically compensating for this extra detour that goes back and forth and out here. And this type of calculations is something you don't want to do in your head when you calculate the your plan yourself. So that's again why a better route planner exists. I will actually now just show you the extended version of a round trip. So I will go to Gothenburg as well, and I will then go home again. So let's do it like this, and let's see what happens. It takes a little longer time because it's more complicated to calculate this with the waypoints. Let's see where we end up. And here we go. This would then be the round trip, which wasn't much of a round trip in this case, starting here in southern Sweden, going to Stockholm, going to Gothenburg, and then going back home. And not charging in Stockholm, not charging in Gothenburg, and then you get the whole plan. I can show you the table here, with all the charging sessions you have to perform basically to do that trip. And you might see as well, if you look closely, that there's a bunch of gray lines here, and that's our alternative routes that we also present. And I think that's a super important thing to do, because most often there are several reasonable alternatives to the trip. Again, most users don't care about saving the last 2 minutes on a trip. It's more about, what are the good options for a trip for other reasons. And we in a better route planner really want to show this on the first click, and not by forcing people to use waypoints to get to a certain place or use a certain autobahn or whatever it is. So in this case, we see 3 different alternatives, which is usually what we try to present. See, it takes 16 hours to do the whole tour there. We can add 48 minutes and go. Let's see what happened here. We went a little strange, maybe detour here, but then same thing, and then took a completely different highway from Stockholm to Gothenburg than the original plan, which is probably the way I would have been driving this myself, even if it takes longer time, because it's more interesting to not take the same road back and forth and instead get a nicer tour. You can see there's even a detour that takes this long route along the coast of Sweden, adds another 37 minutes, and you get to see a little bit more of the nice views of eastern Sweden to Stockholm and then back again here. So again, there's a lot of features in a better route planner. I will not be showing you all of them here, but the main points of the whole thing is really that you can plan when you're sitting at your computer or at your desk or in your in your kitchen or at the coffee machine. You can compare things, you can compare your routes, and there's a lot more features like waypoints and other things that the Tesla browser doesn't have. I think I'm going to start wrapping up the planner part here now. I think you're gonna probably have a bunch of questions around that one. Let me just briefly mention it, because I promised to that I will do what we do with data. I mentioned that with live data from the vehicle, that's something that is a huge win-win, both for us and for the user. And it's a win for the user in obvious ways. I think you understand that it's, and probably have tried, that it's a lot easier to use a better route planner when your car is connected, because you don't have to type in your state of charge all the time. You get a nice follow-up as you drive. I can show you just very briefly how that follow-up works if you haven't tried it yourself, because I have some fake drives that are, or recordings basically. I can show you this one here, and then go to Lund and go here. Oh, yeah, let's see if that one works. I think it does. Yes. So here, this is a recorded drive. Now this is switching to 3D view, so it takes a little time. You might have seen this in the Tesla browser or tried it in the iOS or Android app. Now it moves a lot faster than it did from the. Let's see if I can use this one. It moves a lot faster than real time. So this is really just a recording that we replay in 4 times real speed or something like that. So while driving, you also get this follow-up in real time. It's a navigation system. It's actually a full navigator nowadays. But it gives you the real time, the important information for an EV driver, basically, where your state of charge is now, the most important number of all, where you will be when you arrive, or what state of charge you will be when you arrive, and then some numbers on when you will be arriving, how long you will be charging when you get to the next charger, and so on. So this is something that is completely enabled, I would say, by the live data that we offer here as well to connect your car, and super important. So again, there's a bunch of good reasons for any user to connect your car to a better route planner, to be able to use a better route planner in a much nicer way. There's also the other side of that, and that is, which is not, it's another good side in this case. The good side is that we get more data as well, because the data that comes from your car will be used anonymously. So we'll be storing statistics from it and anonymous data out of it that we can use to improve our models. So based on all the different, now I'll turn this off, otherwise you will be just looking at the animations. So based on, and I can actually turn off the sharing here for a little bit so you see my face instead. There we go. So the data that we get in when you drive with your vehicles connected to Better Route Planner is something we anonymize. We treat it as just completely depersonalized data, but we use it to figure out how the cars work, and we use it to figure out how chargers work and how cars work in different weather, and a lot of those things that make the whole planner possible, I would say. So we would not have a Better Route Planner in the shape it is today, and it wouldn't be possible at all, basically, without having this live data coming in from our users. This is how we learn how vehicles behave. And that's also why we constantly, improve and change our vehicle models as well. So data is super important for us, and we use it a lot to improve on these things and learn. And when you connect your car to a Better Route Planner, you don't only help us get better at predicting your car's behavior as a group. I mean, you do help us get more data from Model S's and Model 3s and Model X's and whatever it is. But you also improve the model for your own car, because on top of that common knowledge that we build, we also adapt exactly to your car. And that's what I showed you in the beginning here as well, with the bike racks and then roof box and the models I have for my car. This is something that a Better Route Planner has learned from the data from my car only. So I can get my own models. So live data is one of the most important things that we work on in our daily life in the Better Route Planner, basically. And obviously with Teslas, it's kind of easy because the Tesla API enables us to allow users to log in and get data from your cars, which is super nice. But a lot of the other EVs in the market don't have this opportunity yet. So we explore basically a lot of different ways of getting data from other cars. You might have seen projects with OBD adapters, these repair shop adapters, so you can put it into the car and read out data in real time. There are various projects like that. There are projects where people use APIs to the cars as well, similar to Tesla, and connect there, and we get that type of data as well. And we allow third-party apps and companies and services to connect to a Better Route Planner and allow their users to push data into their users' Better Route Planner accounts, basically. So that's the way we work with it, because again, we're a small company, so we can't do everything ourselves. We really rely on collaborating with others. You might have seen that we just 3 weeks ago released an app together with Polestar. And this is the same app. Again, everything is common code here because otherwise we couldn't do it. So it's our Android app, but fitted to work in, with the screen size and everything on the Polestar. And one of the really, really nice features there is that we can run the app in the car. It's the infotainment system of the Polestar is an Android. And it's not just any Android, it's an Android automotive operating system. And automotive there in this case means it has some special features for us to talk to the car. So we can actually read out in real time the car speed, location, battery status, charging power, a lot of those things, and including, of course, if you drive the car, if you're standing still. So it really solves a bunch of problems at the same time for us and the user. You get a nice screen in the car to run your navigation or better route planner plan on. You get live data from the car directly by just running the app in the car and accepting that we are allowed to talk to the car. And you also don't have to have your phone up there just to be able to run an app or run the slow Tesla browser. So that's a super exciting development of the car industry here, because all of a sudden we as a small, 5-6 people company can come in with an app that we had developed and get it in the hands of the owners of Polestars without being part of a 5-year project with Polestar. Which was, usually the case where everything takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to develop a car. We didn't have to do that. We could talk to Polestar the last couple of months and just basically get their acceptance to get our app into their app store, which is super nice and super exciting for both of the users and for us, and actually also for Polestar, because Polestar is, as you might know, like a spin-off from Volvo. They get a lot of the technology from Volvo, but they're also there to actually be a bit more maybe modern in terms of digital things, software, and so on, and ways of using this. This is, as you might have realized, not the way a vehicle manufacturer works normally. You don't get third-party apps that anyone can download and run in the car. But fortunately, this is something that is happening, and it's an amazing opportunity both for the EV drivers and for us to be able to kind of short circuit the long distance between the user and us in the car. And so I super excited about that, and I really hope that this will happen more with more vehicles as well coming out, that we can run Android Automotive or something similar, so that we can run the app directly in the car if the user wants to. And again, Polestar has been fantastic in supporting us here, because they really wanted third-party apps in their car. It's been built there to allow for third-party apps, and really, I mean, in their view, let the user choose their favorites and not let Polestar choose their cheapest option or whatever it usually is. So that's a fantastic one. So I think I'll just wrap up my long rambling here and talking about all the features and so on. There are certainly a lot of things we haven't covered, but I'll just let that up to you and ask questions instead. And I hope that we can get something more interesting to say out of this as well.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, it was very interesting. I also learned really a lot of things. Yeah, how to use it, and yeah, I have a first question from Rolf. What other fast charging network next to Tesla supercharging do you think has a bright future?
Oh, which ones that are good and we are doing the right thing?
Or also they are really, or survive, and also maybe really grow very fast, or
I think you might know more than I do about, for example, the market in Switzerland and what's growing there and so on. I can just tell you what I see from our perspective and from our users and so on. There are a few, I mean, let's say like this: fast chargers are usually built by either say old power companies. They're usually old and they're usually more or less giants, or they are built by new companies that are built, that were founded to build EV chargers basically. And of course there's usually a difference in culture between those two, because then we know with the EV charging centric new companies, of course they have a lot less money maybe than the old power companies, but they really have a different mindset and maybe culture within the company when they're building these things. Anyhow, I don't know which one will survive in the end or which one will be the best, but I see a few that are really doing what I see as a good job right now. Fastned, for example, in the Netherlands, are one of these companies that has been founded to build these things only, and are not a power company. They're doing a great job, and they're also quite open with their data and their ways of working and all of that. So I personally believe a lot in them, without knowing too much, of course, about the inner workings of what they do. I see a power company in Germany, for example, EnBW. I guess it's Baden-Württemberg or something. who are, you know, obviously here building a lot of nice chargers, and also, as I understand it, at pretty reasonable prices to the users. So I appreciate that a lot, of course. I also think that what Volkswagen is doing with Ionity is the right way to do it. That is taking responsibility for the whole product and not just the car. And as you might have realized, then there are a few policies and things within Ionity that make it a little less optimal, like the pricing, for example, and their absolutely useless app that has been pulled. It's been pulled from the App Store even because it was so bad.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's nowadays you have to get to the web page, and the web page is basically the app. You know, the app was the web page, and the web page is still unbelievably bad. So yeah, it's a mystery. But anyhow, you have to give them credit for building a lot of good charging stations in the right spots all over Europe. So I mean, without Ionity, the situation would be a lot worse. Yeah, so basically I don't have any super recommendations on who will do this best in the end or who's doing it best now, but for sure there are a few really progressive charging networks, and I really appreciate this. I understand the difficulty of making business for them, because you can't have a very nice margin on your, you know, charging power or charging energy, because they I mean, no one will want to pay the whatever it is, 90 euro cents that Ionity pays, for example, or takes. But they have understood that this is an investment, really. It's really about taking part of the marketplace and getting the right locations and really helping the EV community, or say the European community understand and understand EVs and start using EVs. I think that's super important. So I'm super thankful for the guys who invest a lot of money in this to build these networks. I think I heard somewhere that it's, you know, building one fast charger is something like on the order of 100,000 euros or so. So, you know, the electricity part of charging is a very small part of what has to be paid back to really pay off that investment.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have a question also from Rolf. Do you also rate superchargers for the calculation, and what do you take in for consideration for the calculation from superchargers then?
Yeah, there is. That's a good question. Obviously, not all chargers are equal, and not all superchargers are equal either. I think most of you in the Tesla community might know that there are V2 superchargers and there's V3 superchargers that have pretty basically different generations of superchargers. The V3 can go up to 250 kilowatts maximum, and then the V2 usually go up to 150 kilowatt maximum. So obviously that's things that we take into account for sure for first. But then obviously the number of stalls, or the number of, you know, chargers at the charging location, the supercharging location, matters a lot. Because if there's a lot more stalls, then usually there's a lot more margin for you know, finding a free spot. Finding something that isn't broken. I mean, that's usually not a big problem with superchargers, but just generally getting to a charging location with more chargers is usually preferable if you look at robustness and time. So that's also something we work with in the planner, that it prefers, you know, larger supercharger stations. But I mean, really, our planner is, as you might have understood, an optimizer that runs internally. It optimizes trip time. And it optimizes trip time by also looking at the risk for having to wait for a supercharger, for example. So if we see a supercharger location that is usually super full at this time, then we add some expected waiting time. So in comparing two supercharger locations, if one is small and slow, but usually not busy, and compare that to a large, fast, and very busy location, then the small one might actually win, because we, you know, in our model, the time to charge might still be lower at the smaller location. So again, we try to do all of these things. Then one thing that we are not yet fully doing, but something that we probably will be doing in the future here, is that we will try to learn, based and again on the data we get from your users, how the individual characteristics of the different superchargers. So For example, some superchargers in certain locations might have a power problem, just to supply power. So if on Friday night,
yes,
the supply power is not that nice, so you will be getting a lower charging rate, and that's something we also like to take into account. And that can also be time varying, of course. But again, we get a lot of data from charging sessions, so and we can learn these things and see how it works in different locations. I mean, that would be one individual variation would be the availability of power to the station. Another one might be the weather, actually. Some locations in the world are in very hot places, and if you're in a very hot place, at least the older superchargers would actually throttle you because they would be getting too hot. Some part of the system would be getting too hot, so it will throttle down. So for example, if the handle of the charging cable is getting too hot, you get a lower rate. So we will be learning these things. We're not using all of that data yet.
Okay. And do you also have somehow a switch to not optimize maybe trip time, but maybe somehow the beauty of a road trip or something like that? Or so for if you want to go tripping for fun or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, the default choice, the first plan you get is optimized for a trip plan. So you kind of know the baseline. This is as fast as it can get. Okay. All the other choices will make the trip time worse or longer, depending if you think it's worse or not. But it's really up to the user to add those changes to the plan that will make it more suitable for the user. And that could be like in the plan example that I showed you here. I stopped at Ödeshög supercharger for an hour to charge. That makes the whole trip slower. But it fortunately, it doesn't make my whole trip 1 hour slower because I do something like that, because I'm still charging. So it's good for me. It just takes a little bit more than optimal time. So no, optimizing for beautifulness is unfortunately not there yet. But again, we do propose these alternative routes to be able to give you the option to find other routes that are reasonable but different. And we also have features that I haven't showed you here yet, but for example, searching for restaurants or hotels that have chargers. So for example,
I saw that.
If I'm getting pretty tired of the highway fast food that I'm usually stopping at with my Tesla. So I could sometimes accept that I take 1.5 hour lunch on like slightly on the outside of the highway. But still stopping at a charging location because I like to be charging as I stop at least. So that's also a feature we have that makes the trip slower, but it makes it nicer if you want to.
Okay. And then a question from Christian Ogea, maybe you know him, is the programmer of Tesla Logger. So he asks if there is an API to send data to a better route planner, like current position or state of charge. Or,
yes. As I mentioned here, we really like live data, and we spend a lot of time trying to get it from many different cars. So the way that we get data from other vendors, other apps, and so on is really that we have our open Telemetry Api, the internal name. So if you Google that, you'll find the open documentation for it. All you need is an API key, and you'll get it from us for free. And what you can do with that is that you can push data to a better route planner for certain users and cars. So basically, you can build an app where you send the user to a better route planner. The user can accept that, yes, this app can send data to my car. And then that information goes back to the app, and you can start sending data.
Okay, so that is cool. So I think, Christian, that is what you ask. Or maybe you can comment on that.
Yes, I'll contact you.
Yeah. Excellent.
So we will see then in the next release Tesla Logger feature.
Sure, go ahead.
You will be flooded with data, Bo.
We like that.
Okay. So then you mentioned that you have, we see the live data of the superchargers. So do you also have other charging networks where you get live data? Because I didn't really checked that.
Yeah, we do. And of course, as a Tesla club and so on, it's not that much of an issue for you. But yeah, we do collaborate with a bunch of data sources where we can get this data, not by any means from all charger networks yet. But for example, we have direct agreements with a bunch of charger network owners so that we get data pushed from them to us for every change of state, basically, so that you can go to charging, or if you stop charging or it's broken or something like that, we get that live. So for example, from Ionity or Fastned or Aligo, we get live data directly from them and show it to our users, which is it's a very nice feature, of course, when you're out driving and you can see that there will be a charger for me.
And how do you do that then? Is that then how do you do that? Is that then pushed from the charging network, or is that
the good solution? There are usually a number of different solutions, and we use all of them. The good solution is when they use a protocol called OCPI, Open Charge Point Interface,
okay.
and they push data over to us, which is a very nice technical solution. And of course, this is something where we work all the time to reach out to or discuss with charging networks to get these agreements in place. And the good thing with being a better route planner is that we are starting to become known enough and used enough in the EV community, and known enough so that they know about us and so on. They know we have a lot of users. They most often realize that they would win by giving us data, because we could bring customers into their network, and so it's getting easier for us to get that data.
Okay,
but
I have to check, because in Switzerland all the new fast chargers along the highways, they are obliged to somehow have this real-time data sent to a central place. So you can also see then, I mean, beside Tesla, it's a private network, but all the new ones along the highway, what they build now, you can get it from a central public place.
That's excellent. And I think the European Union is actually starting to force their members to create some kind of national databases for chargers as well. I know Austria has something which just started up. So that's extremely good news for us and all the apps, of course, using these things, and for the users in the end.
And how are you doing that then with Tesla?
I think you can figure it out.
Okay.
No, but I mean, obviously, we have a lot of Teslas being connected to us, and by just combining that data, we can get the picture which ones are in use. Okay.
Then I would have a question about we're doing from the Tesla Club. We're doing sometimes a really road tripping with a lot of cars. So do you also plan an option to have calculating a road trip with maybe, I don't know, 20 or 50 cars, because that is always a little bit a hassle if we are doing our annual road trip through the Alps, so that then everyone, I mean, it's not that long, but that anyone is then getting his charge.
Yeah, okay. I haven't actually ever considered that issue, but maybe it's something we should look at as well. Would it be okay to spread you out over different superchargers?
Yeah, because that would be probably, that would be nice. So that you could, as an organizer, you could say, okay, I have now 20 or 30 Teslas, or even, I mean, that would be my second question. And even if everyone is really having a better route planner login, then you combine to a group or a column or something like that. And you would also then probably see in the map actually where people are, because we also had sometimes we lost people. It's like a glimpse map or something like that. But,
this is something we've been discussing internally, because obviously it could be a lot of fun to have everyone on the same map and being able to see the state of charge of everyone and so on, be able to follow it in real time. And we have everything in place, right? We can easily connect everyone. We have a sharing feature, but it's not super well fit for these like single day events with a large group, for example. But yeah, if you have good ideas there on how that would work, that would be excellent, because I would really love to have that in place.
Yeah, because we also, I think if we can then really restart some physical events or so, I think we will get flooded. So, I mean, everyone will attend every event, or if we are driving to, if we want to drive to the Gigafactory in Berlin, I mean, probably also everyone is attending, or and that would be super nice if you planning or just seeing if someone has a problem, or if you could form a group somehow, a road tripping group.
Exactly. So it might be something like forming an event, as you say.
Yes.
And then allowing people to maybe join that event with their data, so that you can share it with the others in the event at the same time for a day or for a few hours. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, that would be super handy.
Yeah. And in general, on that topic, again, we've been mentioning data quite a few times here. Data privacy is something we take very seriously in the company. One of our co-founders is a lawyer working on GDPR only all day. So he's been really pushing us, and we have been doing it from the beginning anyway, to make sure we handle privacy nicely and mostly work with anonymized data, so that we don't by accident share anything that is sensitive. And basically the design aspect, the philosophy we have when we design our system technically in the back end, how we store data and so on, is that we assume that we will be hacked. So at some point data will leak out, because someone will hack our servers. And we don't keep them open, of course, we try to prevent it, but the design philosophy is that if we get hacked, it should be really hard to get any sensitive data out of there, and we should try to avoid storing any sensitive data and so on. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I really like that. I mean, I hear that not too often. That mindset.
Those are interested can read our integrity policy, which you can find if you Google it. It's I really like that writing from our lawyer. It's super clear and really stating that we're not interested in your personal data.
Yeah, I mean, I also read a lot of that stuff, but I mean, if I hear it from you, then it's probably more really
maybe it's even
into the company, found into the company, and So, anyone else has another question? I think, Then I have another one, and maybe you know that state of charge. So how is the risk appetite of your users? So what state of charge do you see for in the starting of a change? So is that because that I would be really interested if you would know that, because then you can see how is really the risk appetite of the people.
That's true. It's a very good question, and I am a bit sad that I don't have that statistics now. So I don't, I can't easily get it out of the system as we speak either. But yeah, for sure, we definitely see, the default setting of a better route planner is 10% at arrival at the charger and so on, and that's usually enough for you to always get there in most conditions. I've almost gotten myself stuck on the road once when the better route planner was slightly broken, so it didn't understand that that I had my ski box on my route, and I charged far too little, and the car was warning me, and everyone was warning me, and I still thought it was okay. But it was fun. So I came to the destination with 0% for the last 4 kilometers, I think. So that was a bit sweaty. I think most people maybe have done something like that sometime. There are a few power users who set this to 5% or 2% or even 1% as an arrival margin. I know some people who would always drive their car to 0 kilometers for the next charger by driving faster until they get to 0. I unfortunately I can't tell you the statistics. I don't know it. I would be expecting, of course, that with less power users and more relative sense common users, the risk might move up a little bit. But you also realize when you set it to 20%, you will always make it. There is no chance you can miss this thing. So you know, for really risk-averse users, 20% is plenty.
Yeah, just I mean, I think that would be maybe an interesting KPI to really see also over time if people get more risky. Or I mean, I know like my wife, she's just, I mean, at home she plugs in probably every day or so. Does try really something out, or I mean, it's just getting the habit to plug in the car and most of the time. And that would be interesting maybe to see over time how people are moving, because I realized for me that at the beginning I really I always drove with navigation on to really see how it was going. And now I realized that the known targets or the known destinations that I have, I forgot to put in navigation, because it's I know how it works, and I feel really comfortable.
Yeah, that's what happens after a while.
Okay, so average state of charge from Christian. So what it is?
Is that some statistics?
Yeah, of course. So maybe you can say something, Christian.
Yes, this is the average state of charge on arriving on a supercharger. So this is the data from, I don't know, like 20,000 supercharger charges. And as you can see, the average is at like 20%.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's quite low. It's quite low.
I think it's low. I think it's high.
It is high, yeah.
I would have expected that's probably in the 30s or so, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but of course this includes. I mean, if you take any trip, your first charging stop will usually be at something like this, maybe, or even higher, because you get to a supercharger. Maybe it isn't just far away enough from where you start.
And Christian, what do you say then? Is this number is now getting lower over time from your users, or?
No, this is the average. So basically it's like how far you go with your battery. I try to get lower than 10%, like 8% or 7%, but never lower than 5%. But if the supercharger is far away or too near to you, and you're not able to reach the next supercharger, so you will come with 50% state of charge at the supercharger, and you will charging with low speed. So that's why a couple of supercharging sessions are way higher than 30%.
Okay.
Feature.
After the pandemic.